Hello.
All right.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm okay. Let's see. I can do that.
Looks good.
Okay. All right. Oh, I see some people. Did I set this up with a weight room? I did. So we don't have to let people in since it doesn't start until 10:30, but so there are.
Yeah, if Peter's there, let's let him in, Peter and Deb.
Yeah, they're not here yet. Oh, Deb is here. I can let Deb in.
Yeah. Yeah, she's managing the whole thing, so.
Okay.
How many signed up?
Well, not including you. 38.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's much better than last time.
I know. That's a great number. And I got a few emails this morning from some folks across the pond. So hello. Good afternoon.
Hi.
Oh, good. We can hear you.
Doing? Yeah, move up a little bit because half your face is not there. Yeah.
Have you got anything you can just put it on, Debs, just to raise it a little bit?
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah. It's the wonder of technology. Either that or we got to get down like this.
Yeah, you don't want to be like this for the next hour. That would be uncomfortable.
All of them too high. Now take the two top ones off, and we'll try it like this and see what happens. There we go. You just can't beat propping everything up with a book, can you?
Not any old book.
Not any old book. You come this way a bit. Look towards me. Cool.
So, nice.
There we go.
Perfect. It's awesome. How you guys doing? Good? Did you guys go riding today?
No, we thought we'd save ourselves for the afternoon.
Yeah, I get a little bit tired in the afternoon, so it's really been sort of a bit of a chilling day really, and just not doing much, and just all ready for today's big event.
Oh, that's so great. Well, I'm Alex, by the way. So nice to meet you from HFC, formerly Hilarity for Charity. I was just telling Marianne that we had 38 people registered. So I hope we get a good showing today. And I did get a few emails this morning just confirming UK time. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the hard part. I never had to worry about that until All's Authors. I never, only thing I concerned about was Pacific time.
Right.
Yeah. And after we started All's Authors, now I was interacting with people all over the world, and I would have to be aware of that,
So what time is it where you guys are now then?
10:30 a.m.
Okay, yeah.
We're still on the same day.
Yeah, if we get people from the West Coast, it'll be very early for them. So we will give them extra kudos.
Yeah, it seems it's quite bizarre, really, where you have a large country and then you've got different time zones in that country, and it's different. It's difficult to get your head around, really. I mean, in Britain here, it doesn't matter where you go, we're still on the same time zone. So
yeah,
it's weird.
It gets very confusing for organizations like ours that we have to
schedule meetings,
Mountain time, Central time, Pacific time.
It took me months to interview Kate Swaffer in Australia, and it was already like more than one day beyond for her.
Right.
Wow.
In Australia, she was like, I don't know, a lot of hours. It was like the next day and hours later. I don't even remember, but it was 5:30 my time and 7:30 a.m. her time, like 2 days later.
Nuts.
So she had seen the sunrise before you had seen it set. How bizarre.
Yeah. It makes it hard, like, to participate in these kind of things for her, in the United States.
So I'm seeing people starting to enter the waiting room. I'm just telling them we'll get started shortly. What we thought we would do is I'll just do a quick hello and introduction, and then really I'm going to just turn it over to you guys and Marianne, and I'll monitor the Q&A and the chat. I think there's just chat. And so if I see kind of questions or comments coming up, I'll pipe in, so you don't have to worry about paying attention to what's happening below.
Yeah. I was going to do an intro, and I have like some housekeeping things to say, and then introduce Peter, and then we'll start the conversation.
Okay, perfect.
And I envisage Peter doing the bulk of the talking, and I'll chip in for little bits.
Yes,
Okay.
I had some questions for you too that were direct.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah. About writing the book. What made you want to write the book?
Sure.
Yeah, and you know, we're hoping that people won't be too shy, and there'll be a bit of a discussion. And Marianne, do you want to do housekeeping around staying mute?
Yeah, it's about being muted. It's about being recorded, so you can shut your camera off if you don't want to be seen. About the raffle, and then at the end about upcoming book club series and the event, next week's event.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, well, since we're at the 10:29 mark, if you're set, I'll go ahead and I'll just start. There's 7 people, so I'll just start letting them in. You'll start seeing heads pop in. Okay, we'll get, and some of these are familiar faces, so I'll just start.
Yep. There's my Vicky.
Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. We're just going to be letting folks in as they join, and we'll get started shortly. Excited to see so many people this morning and this afternoon. While we're waiting, if you care to, please feel free to chime in the chat where you're tuning in from. We always love to see where folks are joining from. Oh, I see.
Yeah, hello, Peter. It's Chris Norris from Ashford in Kent.
Hello, Chris. How are you?
Hello, Gary. I'm good, thank you.
Hello,
Yeah.
Chris. I've seen your name often pop up.
Somebody who's in the same time zone as us.
That's right. Yeah, I got it sorted eventually. I went on at 10:30 this morning because I got mixed up with EST and whatever EDT, and
yeah, we were talking.
I had an email setting me straight, so that was good.
You're looking well, Chris. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too as well. I'm looking forward to hearing you too.
Wonderful. Hello. And we have Rose from Canada. We are international today. We're very excited. So we'll be getting started shortly. We just wanted to give folks an opportunity to join us this afternoon, this morning, wherever you may be. Feel free to let us know where you're joining us from in the chat. We will get started. I'll just start by welcoming everybody. My name is Alexandra Villano. I work with a foundation called HFC, formerly known as Hilarity for Charity. We were founded by actors, comedians, writers, producers, all-stars, Seth Rogen and Lauren Miller Rogen. I'll put our website in the chat for you to check us out at your earliest convenience, but we do have programs for Alzheimer's family caregivers, and we also focus a lot on brain health education and Alzheimer's prevention. So we run a number of events and programs and provide a lot of resources on our website. So we hope you'll check us out. We're so excited to welcome you to the first of our summer series sessions with our partners at All's Authors. And so I'm excited to turn it over to my colleague, Marianne.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Alex. Thank you for having us work with you on this summer book series. It's something that we enjoy doing, and we certainly have a lot of books to share. So I'm Marianne Shuko. I'm a co-founder and manager of allsauthors.com. We're the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience. And we welcome you to our first summer series of 2021, and this time featuring Peter Berry and his wonderful, inspiring book, Slow Puncture, Living Well with Dementia. Thank you all for sharing some of your your precious time with us. And I'd like to introduce some of the members of our management team who are with us today. Jean Lee and Vicky Tapia, if you guys could just wave, that'd be great. This event is being recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel as well as HFC. So if you prefer not to be seen, you may want to turn off your camera. Everyone here is muted unless you present a question in the chat box. You can write it there, and Alex is monitoring the chat, and we may call on you to ask the Am I muted the whole time?
No, we can hear you now.
You couldn't hear me before?
No, we could hear you. I just muted everybody for 2 seconds and you went out.
Oh,
we
all right.
heard
scared
you.
me, 'cause all of a sudden
Sorry.
I got the notice I was muted, and I'm like, what happened? So
Yeah.
I was talking about the chat. Did you get everything up until the chat?
Yeah.
Asking questions in the chat? Okay, yeah. So let me find my notes. I have 2 computers, or 3 here, and it gets confusing sometimes. Okay, so if you want to ask the question, you can do that, or we will ask it for you. I just want to let you know that all participants in the summer series are going to be entered into a raffle to win a copy of our first anthology, Alzheimer's and Dementia Caregiving Stories. 58 authors share their inspiring personal stories. And the book is available in Kindle, paperback, and audio, and the winner can choose which edition they would like. Unfortunately, paperbacks can only be sent to winners in the United States. So if you win and you're in England or elsewhere, you will need to choose either a ebook or a audiobook. But the audiobook is great too, and you might enjoy that. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about my friend, Peter. Peter Berry ran the family's timber business for decades before being diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at age 50. He immediately stopped working and fell into a deep depression. After some time, he realized he still had a life to live. He overcame his depression, and now he fills his days with cycling across the English countryside with his friends, and he advocates for those with dementia in his community and on social media. To date, he has raised more than 20,000 pounds for dementia charities through cycling challenges, and he tells his story in Slow Puncture, Living Well with Dementia, written with the help of his friend, Deb Bunt. He lives by the sea in Suffolk, England with his wife, Teresa. So welcome, Peter. And I also want to welcome Deb.
That's better. For some reason we were muted. I don't know why, but we are all here now. So hello everybody. Lovely to be able to talk to you all.
That's great. We are so happy to meet with you, and we have a big time difference here, so that was challenging, but we made it. So Peter, can you just start off by telling us about how your dementia diagnosis came about?
Yeah, I think it was probably evident to my wife probably a good 3 years prior to the actual diagnosis. I had a very good memory when I was running my business. I would remember, because running a sawmilling or lumber business, as you would say over there, is very much based on measurements and calculations. And these I would do quite well, and I had a very good memory for that particular business that I was doing. People would come up to our sawmill, up to our yard, and order something, and they would come back months later, and I could remember the order quite easily. But I was finding that as things progressed, I was forgetting orders. I was not being able to do the mathematics like I was being able to. The calculations I couldn't do. And I know that my wife came into my office that I had at home once, and I had got a lot of post-it notes. I was writing a lot of things down that I never did write down. I might make an odd little note here or there, but most of the time it was all all in my head. So I think that was the start that my wife really noticed more that things weren't right, more than I did. I think I was just under the impression that I got a lot going on, and you know, maybe it was just one of those things that I was getting a little bit older and I just couldn't remember. But yeah, so that was the fact. And then, of course, that started the ball rolling with various tests and brain scans over a period of about 3 years to give us the final diagnosis at the age of 50.
And at that time, you had told me in our podcast, because we do have a podcast and you were a guest on it, that after your diagnosis, you were kind of depressed and despondent. And how long did that go on for?
I think one of the key problems was for us as a family. The diagnosis was for us, not me as an individual. And I think there was lots of difficulties through that. One of the things was obviously financial issues, being at the age of 50 and still having a mortgage and having, you know, needing to earn money, and all of a sudden couldn't do that. And of course, there wasn't the support out there that there is now. I think over the last few years in this country, things have changed quite a bit with the support levels. But you see, we, like many other people at that time, were just given a diagnosis with a rough life expectancy of X amount of years and a little leaflet and go away. That was it. So it was a very depressing time. And I think that the sort of, how can I put this, I suppose the weight of dementia and what was going to come weighs very, very heavy. So all of these things together just make one very bad, ugly dementia monster. And yeah, the depression was not a good place to be. And I think that trying to educate people now that you can live with this condition, I want to try and tell people that, you know, they don't need to go to the place that we did for the length of time we did. I think it was a good full year of depression, and quite a nasty time.
Okay, so how were you able to pull yourself out of that?
Well, I got to a very, very low place where I don't think that anybody should have to go in their lives, really. And I think it was at that point that I realized that nobody was helping us as a family. So who was helping all the others out there that were going through the same thing and would be going through the same thing in the future? And I think I come to realize that I knew what it was like to be at that particular place. And maybe I could just help somebody. So that, I suppose, gave me the inspiration that I needed, gave me a sense of purpose again, because I'd lost a sense of purpose. I'd lost the business. I'd lost being able to drive. I hadn't got my independence, I don't suppose, anymore. And I suppose it gave me a sense of purpose. And that was also the time, if I recall rightly, where I decided to do a very Peter insane thing and cycle across Great Britain from Wales back to the coast. So it was really from coast to coast, just to show people that people like me with dementia could still do things. And so that was what I did. And yeah, and from then on, it sort of became my sole purpose now for the last few years, just to raise awareness, educate people, and basically to live my life as well as I can and do all the things that I want to while I still can. And I'm sure that that's what's keeping me going. Keeping going is keeping me going, if that makes sense.
That's a great way to look at it. And you often say that life isn't over with dementia, it's just different.
It is, and I think it's true with many conditions. But I think that the problem with dementia is that when you're told you have this diagnosis, you actually think that it's over. And because people's perception is different to the reality, I think that people just think of elderly people in care facilities who are just sitting around in their pajamas and not really responding to people, that, you know, you can still achieve things. Normally, people in our age group are physically fit. It's just that our ability to do things using our mind is not quite as good, but with a little bit of assistance, we can still carry on, we can still function and still do things. I mean, as the great Wendy Mitchell said, we are still us.
Yes, that is so true. So tell us how you met Deb.
Well, it was rather one of these things that you couldn't really make it up. It was just a chance meeting with somebody who happened to move into this area and just happened to like cycling. And at that time, cycling has always been a big part of my life. But at that time, I wasn't really cycling on my own much because I tend to get a little mislaid, not lost, just mislaid. And so cycling, I needed to cycle in order to get away from my dementia monster. But my wife was busy working and it didn't quite work. And I found this person who I thought, well, maybe I can have a few cycle rides with, maybe a few times a month. And little did I know, or yet I'm sure Deb's will agree, that it would turn into be such a great friendship. But where did we meet, Debs? I'll leave that one to you, I think.
Well, I think we met fittingly in a cycle shop because I was new to the area and I was sort of pottering around hoping to make a friend, and went into the cycle shop, and the lady who owned the cycle shop mentioned Peter's name, and I sort of said, yeah, whatever, as I do, and he was standing there, and so we had a chat, and it just sort of escalated from there.
And it's very, very fair to say, and I think very important to say at this point, that Debs is not my carer, and we are great friends. Me and her husband and my wife, we're all great friends, but we're just two friends who cycle. It's not that I need her to look after me, but I just need somebody to be with, which I think everybody does. And we've cycled many, many, many thousands of miles over the last, couple of years?
3 years. Yeah.
3 years, yeah. And so it's become a very important thing. And I think that sometimes we look at further afield for support, for a want of a better word. But I think sometimes support and friendship can be closer with friends and family. And I think that's an important thing to say.
And I also think it's the case that, as Peter said, I don't support him. Quite the opposite, really. I'm a bit of a liability to be let out. So if anything, Peter supports me and looks after me. I'm a little bit accident prone and I haven't got a sense of direction and I can't do anything to fix the bike. So I'm pretty well dependent on Peter.
And I often use that as a lever as well. If she says anything, I'll say, well, look, who mends your punctures, girl, eh? It doesn't me.
So Deb, please tell us what made you decide to write Peter's story and what's your background as a writer?
Background as a writer, didn't really have one, although I dabbled, and I had a few short stories published in very insignificant magazines and a couple of novels unpublished. But that's always what I wanted to do, was to write. And why I wrote Peter's story was, it occurred to me, he said so many amazing things and has such a fantastic attitude. And as you've heard from his introduction, his story is pretty amazing, but I wanted to capture it for him. Didn't really think it was going to be a book. I sort of did a few blogs on his Facebook page, and then it just developed into a book because he did so many activities in one calendar year that I thought it made a nice sort of overview, and that's how it evolved. So Peter's dementia has enabled me to achieve my ambition. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And it's meant me. Sorry.
I don't know how that would ever even occur to anybody, that somebody else's dementia was going to allow them to realize their ambitions.
Yeah, I mean, it is slightly sad that that's what it took, but it's Peter giving to me another example of the friendship being equal.
And I think from my point of view, it was great to have things written down for the future, because how can I put this out?
You forget things.
I forget things. My words for me are written in sand, and then I suppose dementia washes it away. But I needed something that was written in stone. I needed it to be cast iron, and Deb started to jot these things down, and it's great to have it, even though I have never read the book, and I probably never will. Well, I know I will never read the book, and I don't really know exactly what's in it, but I do know that it's helped people understand the condition, and I think it's helped people, live better maybe with their loved ones who have got the condition. And I think it's also taught people who have dementia that if a guy can ride a bicycle and actually live his life well, then I'm nobody special. Then anybody can do it. Anybody can dig themselves out of a hole and actually live their lives well, because that's what we've got to do. What is the other alternative? We sit indoors and let this condition smother us and suffocate us, or we go out and we run away from it and we breathe, and that's what it's all about.
That's very well said.
Can I
You
ask
can
a
see how easy he is to write about.
Yes.
He just gives me the ammunition and I put it on paper.
I'm just curious if you can tell us a little bit about the book title and sort of how that came to be.
Because I have integrity, I'm going to tell the truth.
Yeah.
I was going to call it something else. And it was a chance meeting with somebody we met at a conference who, in passing, as he walked away, said, "Oh, great idea to write about Peter, call it Slow Puncture." And I thought, damn, I wish I'd thought of that. But I can't take the credit. It did come from somebody else. But I think it does sum it up pretty well. And it's a catchy title.
Yeah, it's about cycling. too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us how your lives have changed from the publication of this book.
Well, I suppose that's a bit of a difficult one for me to answer to a degree, because we do lots of talks and things relevant to it. And I think that I tend to forget what I've done and where I've done it and who I've done it to. Deb's and my wife sort of organise all of these things, and I just sort of do. But I think what it's actually done really is it has opened up a different world, I suppose, and it's given me a great springboard, a great platform, a stage to shout about living well with the condition. Before the book, it wasn't really a stage. It was like in a small village hall. Now it's become a stadium where you can actually talk to more people about it and spread the word more. So I suppose it's become a great vehicle to spread the word about, living well with this condition. And I stress the word well, because it's well as we can live with it. And I know that other people who have got this condition will all agree that we don't really suffer with it as we are now. We try and live with the condition. And living with it is something that we can do. I mean, a man who's got one leg will use two sticks. It's the best that he can do with what he's got. So it's the best that people like us can do. And I just choose cycling because it's I suppose, a compass that gives me a direction. Other people might do gardening, running, or walking or whatever. And
But my life has changed because we came up to Suffolk to have early retirement. And being me, I didn't really have any particular plans other than I wanted to leave London. But my life has changed since the publication of the book, because suddenly I'm a writer, and that's a major thing. And people are asking me for interviews and podcasts and radios, and people seem to want to talk to me. So the publication of the book has put a shape around my retirement, which was a little bit woolly and vague and typically me. But now I've got a purpose. And I didn't know what my purpose was when I retired, but now I do.
Something positive has come from something bad, really, which is a very important thing. Within the years of diagnosis and virtually going to the point where I nearly took my own life, I have actually recreated something. I have actually, well, actually had a purpose. I've actually moved forward, and that seems to me personally such a wonderful thing to do, from going so far down to coming to where I am now.
So we have some questions and comments in the chat that we would like to get through. Chris Norris is asking you, Peter, can we see your picture of the Alzheimer's monster?
Oh yeah, it's in. I believe it's in the book. I think. Oh yes, yeah. There he is. Can you see that, Chris? He's not the best looking person. He's I didn't draw a drippy nose on there, but he has got a drippy nose. He's green, actually. He sits on the settee sometimes beside me, and he gets very upset if I go cycling and he's not in control. I created the dementia monster, and I drew him because dementia was in my head and I couldn't physically do anything with it. And I had this idea that if I made it a thing, a physical little monster that I could poke and prod, and I could, how shall I put this, abuse my dementia monster by doing what I wanted to do, then it gave me a bit of power over it. And I needed that sense of power. I needed that sense of I was in control and not the condition. That's what I needed. And I still use that now as something that that I can control him as much as I can. Sometimes he controls me, but you know, I think I win most of the battles. I'll put it that way.
That's great. Does anybody have a question? You want to come off mute and ask your question? Just raise your hand.
Hi, Deb, Peter. I was wondering, how long have you been living with dementia, Peter?
Sorry, what was that again?
How long have you been living with dementia?
Oh, I think it's 5 years, I believe. 6 years, so I'm told. Yes, yeah.
You were diagnosed at 50.
I want to tell you how you are amazing. You are just, both of you are amazing in your own way.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I think that I don't honestly think that I would be as well with my condition now if I didn't have such a positive outlook on life. I think that it's, and also I think it's eating well and keeping physically fit. I have this idea that if I keep the bit from my eyebrows down healthy, it should help the bit from my eyebrows up. That's my sort of lay term. And you know, yeah, things have changed over the last 5 years, but I don't think that somebody like me can halt the progression of the disease, but I think that we can slow it up. I think that laughing at our own condition, taking the mickey out of ourselves and having a light-hearted approach to it is something that is so important to trying to, how can I say, forget about our condition, if that makes sense, you know. And try and be as we always have been.
It occurs to me that there is much published out there about avoiding the onset of dementia by doing all the things you just said you've been doing since you were diagnosed. It's probably worthwhile to say to people, if you are diagnosed with dementia, you should continue to live that way. You're an example of good living with dementia.
I mean, in actual fact, I come to realize that the doctors can diagnose us and they can give us medication, but I think we are really responsible for ourselves. We're responsible for our own health to a point, and it's really, at the end of the day, it's down to us. And I've said before that dementia is a very complicated disease, but it's surrounded by simplicity. And if we deal with the simple things like eating well, exercising, positive attitude, somehow it makes the complicated, messy bit of dementia a little less complicated. Because most of us who have this condition are not doctors, we're not professional healthcare people. We're just people who understand the condition in our own way, but we don't really understand the mechanics of it. And I think that if we can deal with the simple bits ourselves, like I say, living well, then leave the other little bit to the doctors, and our bit is quite a big bit, and the doctors have got a small bit, really. It's not the other way around, I believe, anyway.
Mhm.
Peter,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
oh, go ahead.
Somebody else have a question?
Well, this is Alex again. I was just going to ask if your family or friends have if you've seen any behavior change in terms of their health, and are they eating differently or exercising or taking care of themselves, like sort of following your lead?
My wife is now doing a lot of cycling, even though she always did eat healthy, and I think we always did. My daughter has sort of changed her diet a little bit and has decided that, you know, a healthy approach to life is a good thing. I think, to be honest with you, most people, friends and family, and myself, I don't think we really change until we're forced to change. When we're backed into a corner and you have to change, you do. It's like living in the moment. I live in the moment now, and that's a very difficult thing to do, but I'm forced to live in the moment. So I live well in the moment because I have no choice. And I think it's like somebody who is very unhealthy. They might have a very bad heart condition, and then all of a sudden they change their life because of the condition, and they live a healthier and better life because they had a heart attack. So I think that, but I think people sometimes think, and I think that maybe Chris will agree with this, and other people who have been diagnosed with dementia, because dementia is so different with everybody. None of us are the same. I think people often question, does he have dementia? I mean, my father had Alzheimer's, and he was in his late 70s, I think, when he got it, or mid 70s. His memory was very, very poor, and people used to talk to my father, and they would say to me sometimes, there's nothing wrong with Jim, he hasn't got dementia, he's perfectly all right. But then, very much like me, once my father had walked away from them for 5 minutes, he had no recall that he'd ever seen them. So there wasn't anything wrong with father as such. It's just he had this issue with his memory, and people used to question whether he was actually got Alzheimer's or not, when obviously he had. But yeah.
But people do that to you. People don't believe you. I mean, partly sometimes it's a bit of a game, and you take delight in blagging.
Yes.
But sometimes people say he can't have, because he's normal and he can talk.
Yeah.
And you haven't got a big D on your head, as you often
I haven't.
say.
No, I haven't got a big red flashing D that says I have dementia. And of course, I think a lot of people forget as well. And I know I'm probably going off completely away from the question, which I tend to do that. But and I know other people will agree with this, that when you're diagnosed with a condition like this, you don't get dementia on Wednesday and you're diagnosed Thursday at 3:30. It's a lengthy procedure, and you've had it for some time, and you have coping strategies that you develop over a long period of time, and you don't stop those coping strategies when you are officially diagnosed. And I think people forget that you get used to being a showman with your condition. And also, most of us, I think, me personally, I can't speak for anybody else, I suppose, really, but for me personally, I was, and I still am, a little bit embarrassed to say that I've got the condition, which seems silly to say it, but it is the case. So if I can get away with people not realizing that I've got dementia, then hey, it's 1 to me and dementia 0. I probably run on now, haven't I? I do that. I just go off.
Quite all right.
Yeah, he does. He runs on.
Chris would like to ask a question.
No, it's just really to back up what Peter was saying there, really. It's what I call the Superman syndrome, that when we're out and about and standing on stage and talking to people, that's the Superman that you see. But in actual fact, when we come off stage and go home, we do revert back to the Clark Kent that we actually really are inside our four walls. And that kind of backs up exactly what Peter was saying, that sometimes people, very often people will say, well, you don't look like you've got dementia, or you don't behave like you've got dementia. And probably because we go out of our way when people say that to me, I go, well, thank you very much. And they're stunned. And I say, well, and that obviously means I'm fitting within the parameters of normality. And thank you very much for the compliment.
Yeah. Oh, well done, Chris. I'm glad that you said that, because, you know, it's nice to hear somebody else having the same ideas of how they live their lives. Really, it's just how we are, and I don't really think that anybody really understands the condition until they actually have to live with it. And then I personally didn't, and I'm sure that you didn't. I knew very little about this condition until somebody told me I had it, and then it's when I started to learn myself, really, I think.
I like that analogy, Chris, of the Superman.
Yeah, that's great.
A really good one. I might have to finish that.
Yeah. Is it Superman or Cooperman? That's the thing.
That's great. We have a couple of other questions in our chat. Jacoba is asking, what do you think is important for healthcare and social workers to support people in living well? And do you think something needs to be improved?
Yeah, I think one of the key factors is that I think you've got to try, healthcare workers, I think that the past is very important to people with this condition. Sometimes we don't really have a here and now. If you ask me now about politics and government, I've got absolutely no idea now. I've lost the plot with that, which I think, actually, in fact, most people have, but that's beside the point. But I can't remember what I've had for breakfast and that sort of thing. So I think talking to people about the past is a great thing, because everybody with dementia had a past. They all had jobs and professions and that sort of thing. So you've got to live the life in their skin, really. To give you an example, if I go for a day cycling with Debs, my wife doesn't say to me, where have you been cycling today? Because it's very likely that I won't remember. She'll ask me if I had a good cycle ride. And of course, I can answer that with, yes, I had a good cycle ride. So it's not so much about asking people where they've been, what they've done. It's asking them questions in a roundabout way. When my father went into a care home, on his door at the actual care facility, there was, at the care home, there was a whole write-up about the history of this man. He ran a timber business, he did this, he did that. Jim likes to be called Jim instead of William. And there was a whole thing, write-up. So anybody new came on to provide a service, to assist him with anything, could know exactly what Jim was about, because his name was William James Berry, but he hated being called William. So people would come in and they'd say, oh, hi, William, how are you? And that wound him up to begin with. But if they read that he was Jimmy, then, hello, Jimmy, how are you? That started the whole thing right. And so I think a little bit of education in people's background is a good thing.
Thank you for that. We have another question from Carolyn. She's asking if you're comfortable sharing, are you on any medications or considering them, Aricept or the now newly approved, and I'm not sure that this has made it the news to UK yet, but that the US has now approved the experimental drug aducanumab.
I am on medication, and I have been since my diagnosis, but I'll be perfectly honest with you, I have no idea what the names of the drugs are. I think it's about 3 or 4 tablets, I think, which I take some twice a day and some daily, but I'm afraid to say, and quite embarrassed to say, that I don't know what they are. My wife, bless her, organizes all that for me, and they're laid out in front of me, and I have to take them. If it wasn't for somebody managing that, I wouldn't be able to take them because I really don't know what they are. But I am on something to help me, I suppose, function a little better, put it that way.
We have a question here from Rose, who shares, I've had young onset dementia for 13 years and was recently diagnosed with vascular dementia. I'm wondering if you have experienced any sort of stigma attached to having dementia.
I think the short answer to that is yes, basically. I think, and it's not so much, I think, that people want to be unkind or cruel, but I think it's basically people don't understand the condition. They seem to understand if you say you've got some form of cancer. People seem to be able to get their head around that. But if you say, for argument's sake, oh, my husband or my wife has dementia, all of a sudden people don't know how to do it, how to deal with it. And they tend to talk to your partner, who they think will understand what you're saying, because you have dementia and you won't understand them. Or for some reason, they decide to shout at you because they think that dementia will make you deaf, which is a very bizarre thing. I mean, I have had cases where people have asked my wife when I've been standing right beside her, how is Peter doing? And my wife will say, well, you can ask him, he's here, you know, there he is, ask him. He will tell you. And also I think there has been an issue where some, shall we say, good friends have decided to not be friends anymore because I was diagnosed with dementia, which is quite a sad thing, but then I think we realise who friends are and who friends aren't. But there is a big issue in this country, I think, with employment, employing people with dementia, which to me personally is very bad, because for people in our age group have financial issues. We're not retired at 65 plus. We don't, we can't get a state benefit, a state pension, and it's very, very difficult. I'm quite fortunate because I had a private pension, so I could access that. But there is this, what's the word I'm looking for, where if you're in a wheelchair, you can be employed.
Disability discrimination. Or
discrimination, yeah. Where if you put in an application for a job in this country, they'll probably put a ramp in, or they've got something that if you've got a physical disability, they can cope with that. But if you put on your application form that you have a form of dementia, I'm fairly confident that most companies will just stick it in the shredder and say, no, thank you very much, we got somebody else to do the job. Because I don't think they quite understand. And a lot of people with dementia, people have been surgeons, builders, plumbers, electricians. We haven't forgotten our trade. I mean, people who play instruments before dementia, they haven't forgotten how to play an instrument. They can play it just the same, whether it's the piano or trumpet or whatever it is, just the same. So they can still do things with a certain level of assistance. And I don't think the government support businesses, and businesses don't really support people with dementia. And that was part of the reason why I got involved in the restaurant that makes mistakes, really, to try and change people's views about, you know, the abilities of people with the condition.
Can you tell us some more about that, the restaurant that makes mistakes?
Yeah, it was a few years ago now, actually a couple of years ago, I think, and it was something that, to begin with, I was a little concerned about, because I didn't know whether it would be, how can I put this? It's a sort of a freak show, really. I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but in actual fact, the production company, they did a very good job of A, looking after us, B, supporting us, and showing that people with dementia still had abilities, could still achieve things. So I think it was 14 of us with different types of dementia got together, ran a restaurant in England, Bristol, the city of Bristol, in a disused fire station. We done one cover a day, which is one sort of sitting a day or one service during the day. The menu was down to us. The preparation mostly was down to us, with assistance from a couple of chefs who helped us. All the serving and everything, doing the coffees, taking the money, and everything was all down to us. My role was front of house. Other people had different roles. Some people were in the kitchen, some people were food prep, some people were taking the money at the counter. And it was a great success. And actually, as a direct result of that, a few people with dementia did get a few days' employment around the Bristol area. So it was a great thing to be involved in. And I had doubts, but afterwards, I'm really pleased that I did it, because it taught so many people about the condition and different types of dementia as well. And in actual fact, all of us who were involved in that are pretty much still in contact once a month now via Zoom. And now the lockdown is a little different in this country now. We're hoping to have a meet up again. And yeah, we're even the production team, we're still pretty much all in contact with everybody. So I made some lifelong friends, and I had loads of peer support as well, which was another important thing. Being among people who I hadn't been among before in my age group with the condition for quite a few weeks as well. And it was great to not have to worry about if you forgot something or got something wrong, because hey, we all did, so it didn't matter. It was great. Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. I think we achieved a good thing there. I really think we did.
But I think you may have got things wrong, but everyone had a different level of skill. So that's when the teamwork came in. If you forgot something, somebody remembered it. If somebody couldn't talk, you can certainly talk.
Yep.
So it was a kind of a big harmonious unit. It was really, really successful.
We all came together and made one really successful person, I think, if you see what I mean. We all, it worked really well. And we had some, from what I can recall, we had some famous people in the restaurant as well, some film stars, and yeah, so it was a very interesting time, and we were very, very well supported, I'm pleased to say.
I think that there's a video available for that, isn't there? Somebody make a video?
Yeah, I think there's, I think it's on YouTube, The Restaurant That Makes Mistakes, and I think it's on other places, but I'm not 100% sure where it is now. But I know that if you go onto YouTube and put The Restaurant That Makes Mistakes, there are plenty of clips on there. The Channel 4 production team have also got a YouTube video on there as well, so people can go and check it out. Yeah, absolutely.
Including the one with you not knowing who Hugh Bonneville was.
Oh right, no, I don't actually recall that now. But
Mark, I know you had a question earlier. Do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Sure. I think somebody else may have addressed it, but first of all, I just want to say how much I admire you with your positive attitude. And I think you said, about moving forward with a purpose. And I think that's fantastic, and you make the best of it. It's you're showing that you can still lead a good life, and I think a lot of people just don't understand that. My wife has Alzheimer's, and she's had for many years. And one person said, Alzheimer's, it's a fate worse than death, and she's much happier than he ever was, I think, so I think there can still be a very good life and a very loving relationship and so forth. And you're still doing a lot of things. I guess my question had to do with something that was asked kind of before about how you've noticed people interacting with you, because I know, and in my experience, people don't know what to say or do. And so therefore they don't say or do anything. And therefore it can be a very lonely type of a situation. And just like you mentioned about friends, some of your friends in quotes, drop by the wayside. And I think a lot of times people are just afraid you're going to ask them to do something. They just, I don't know what the situation, it's different for everyone. But I guess the thing is that, and you've already addressed this to some extent, but your feelings about how people approach you, and do they just really don't know what to say? Do they mostly treat you as everything's okay, or what?
I think there seems to be two types of people. There's the type of person who does sort of try and bring you into the conversation and tries to help. And then there's the other type of person who tends to run away and just scream. But we have ammunition, we have the book. And we often suggest to people, you know, read the book. It will give you an idea that, you know, you don't have to talk to people with dementia in a different way. You just have to just talk to people, just the same as you did. And I think one of the key things that I come to realize was that when I was actually diagnosed, I think it was, I can't remember what day it was, but we'll say it was a Thursday. And somebody told me, I went into a doctor's surgery and she said, you have, I'm afraid to say, you have early onset Alzheimer's, blah, 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 blah. Well, I came out of that doctor's and I felt completely different because somebody had told me. But I came to realize very quickly that in actual fact, it took 15 minutes for me to be told that I had dementia. And yet I wasn't any different than when I went in 15 minutes beforehand. So then why should somebody treat me differently? Because I've been told that. So the next day when you happen to tell somebody that you were diagnosed yesterday with dementia, oh, shock, horror, what do we do? Hang on a minute, I'm the same person as I was yesterday. You don't need to change anything. You might need to change something in a few years' time, but not now. And it's them words that seem to change. It's that you're told. And I think that's where people go wrong, because all of a sudden your wife, your uncle, your husband is somebody completely different, but we're not. We're exactly the same as we were before diagnosis. So I think that once people understand that, then they can just talk to you as you are. But I do find that if you go to a party or a gathering, which we used to have many years ago, then I think that because you can't talk so much about relevant stuff that's happening here and now, it's difficult for them to talk about the past. And I think that you can soon be in a room full of people with actually nobody to talk to, because there isn't nothing relevant you can talk to them about, because you don't know anything. And half the time I see people and I'm not sure whether I've spoken to them 15 minutes ago, or am I going to say the same thing over again? And I get a little fearful of that sometimes. So sometimes I probably withdraw myself a little bit. And then it's difficult, I understand, for other people to know how to respond. Do you know, I don't even know if that answered the question, really.
It did.
It did? Oh, good. I don't know. I'm sorry, but I run on and then the question that has been asked has just disappeared. I think, oh no, what am I doing? I'm a train that's come off the tracks all of a sudden.
Peter,
Okay, well,
you're
thank you.
embarking on a new cycling adventure. Do you want to tell us about that? Your new cycling challenge?
Oh yeah, what the program? Yeah, when I was this is a great. I'm glad you brought this up actually. When I was 17, 40 years ago, I cycled along the coast of east of England up to a little market town on the in Norfolk called Cromer, and I wanted to cycle back again, and I wanted to do that again while I still could. And for the last few years, I've been thinking about this. And at the age of 17, I cycled there and cycled back, which is probably a total of 160 miles in a day. But I'm older and wiser now, so we're going to stay a couple of nights overnight and then cycle home. And it'll be really great to sit on the same seat where I had fish and chips 40 years ago and see if my piece of chewing gum is still under there, and try and reenact. And I want to do the same route as I did and see if I can remember the places that I stopped. It's a little trip for me down memory lane, and I've got Debs is coming with me, my wife, and an old school friend, and a friend is driving a car, and it's just going to be a day cycling, but it means a lot to me because I can't really live in the present very well, and it's very difficult to live in the future, but I can use the past as fuel for the present, if that makes sense. So I want to fuel myself on the past to give me something to live in the present. And that's what I need to do. So that's why I think it's next week we're doing it.
Yeah.
So hopefully the great British weather will be kind to us. And yeah, and there'll be a few little video updates on our Facebook page as well, and some photographs. So please do follow us if you can.
That sounds really exciting. And will you be riding the penny far thing?
No, I'm going to progress to the safety bicycle, I think, this time. I didn't think it would ever catch on, two wheels the same size, but I think it has now. The penny farthing is for local rides at the moment, and I'm a member of a group. So when we come back from our trip, my friends are coming from quite different places within the country, and we're all going to have a cycle round on penny farthing. So I still do cycle with penny farthing, but most of the time I'm on my road bike, which I will add has no gears. It's a single speed bike, and I don't want to make things easy for myself. I like to challenge my dementia and challenge myself. Can I do it? Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And if you visit Peter's website, you can see pictures of him and his friends riding their penny far things, which I had no idea they even existed. So I'll claim ignorance of that until I met Peter and saw it on the cover of the book. I said, what is this thing? So what's your website, Peter?
Oh, it's a really long address. It's I don't know, but if you Google Peter Berry website, it will come up, or it's on the Facebook page too. It's just too long for me to recite.
Yeah.
Google Peter Berry, a lot of things will come up, Peter.
Will they really?
Mhm.
Oh dear.
They do.
I'm
They
on
do.
Google. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, really, but
You've become a celebrity, Peter, at this point in your life.
it's quite a bizarre little journey, really. It was never intended to become well known for having, I suppose, a condition like this, and I still think that I get a lot of pleasure out of educating others and helping others to live well. And I've always said that if I could just help one or two people to live well, then there's some good come out of this condition. And it's trying to make something good out of something bad, because I know I paint a good picture about dementia, but the reality is it is a pretty rough deal, and it's not a nice place to be. It's not nice for friends and family, and it's not nice for somebody like me. And it's not about, I suppose, glorifying dementia or making it a good thing, if you see what I mean. It's about teaching people that we are still doing, and we still can do. And that's the important thing. Don't talk about people with dementia, talk to people with dementia. And I want to just show people that, you know, you can do all the things that you want to do within reason, and don't be afraid to try new things. You know, if you try it and it doesn't work, hey, it's only, I suppose, education in progress. That's all it is at the end of the day. As simple as that. Sorry.
No,
I got excited then, didn't I? Too much sugar this afternoon, I think.
Okay. I think we have time for one more question, and that's from Carolyn, who wants to know how and when did you decide to tell everyone versus only a few select people about the dementia?
It was basically the first year we kept quiet about it. So it was a good 12 months after diagnosis. I think that's not unusual, and I think that a lot of people tend to go down that route. Now, personally, looking back on it, it was a very silly thing to do, and we learned from that. And I advise anybody who is diagnosed, don't shy away from it. Don't obviously shout it from the rooftops, but you need to tell people. We didn't, and I think it was because we were embarrassed about it. I was embarrassed about it. What will people think? What will people say? And all of those issues. But in actual fact, it was quite a relief after a year when we actually told people. I think there was an article in the paper, because I believe I was on a drugs trial at the time, and the the people who I do on the drugs trial for wanted to try and recruit some more people in my age group. So they said, would we do an article? And once it was in our local paper, then everybody really knew. And it was quite a relief, really, if I'm honest, because I think people were starting to wonder, why is he not driving? Why is he not running the business? Why is he? And of course, people's minds run riot. And so it was a good 12 months. And I think maybe if we'd told people earlier, maybe we wouldn't have gone down the long depression road that we did. We might have been able to access some help from friends and family before that. So yeah, it seemed like a good idea to keep quiet for 12 months, but it really wasn't. And take that from personal experience, guys.
That's very good advice. So our hour is wrapping up, and I want to thank everybody for attending our very first summer book series for 2021. And I want to thank Peter and Deb for coming and sharing their story and all the wonderful insights that you've given us. It's been really terrific. Next month, we have Dr. Daniel Potts, a neurologist, here to talk about his book, A Pocket Guide for Alzheimer's Caregivers. That's July 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, which Alex has put the information in the chat. And on August 10th, we'll have Loretta Woodward-Vini here to discuss her book, Being My Mom's Mom, at 12 p.m. Eastern time. But in the meantime, you can please join us for All's Authors' very first virtual question and answer. Everything you always wanted to know about dementia, but were afraid to ask, which is next Tuesday, June 15th at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. And Peter will be there. He is one of our 5 panelists who is living with dementia. And they'll be there to answer questions about how they manage with early onset Alzheimer's. This is a must-see for every dementia caregiver and others who are concerned about these conditions. You will find the links to register for all of these events on our website, allsauthors.com, which I will put in the chat. So again, thank you, everybody.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much for having the opportunity.
Thank
Hope
you.
to see you soon.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Have a great ride next week, Peter and Deb.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you. We will. Thank you very much.
Thinking of you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.